moment sitting in Wat Pallelai in Singapore, and this is actually a meditation retreat, so a good number of the retreatants are sitting around here. They've had their daily dose and they've come for an extra dose in the evening. As you'll probably notice when we begin the chanting, you'll hear the little more volume than usual occurring. Having attained liberation, still had compassion for later generations. May these simple offerings be accepted for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Now let us pay preliminary homage to the Buddha. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One.
Brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, let us all now put our palms together and pay respects to Luang Por. 3 bows, please. First bow. Second bow. Third bow.
So wherever you are, in your time zone or physical location, you're always in the realm of citta. Your awareness is being affected by sights and sounds and touches and thoughts. And so when we call it citta bhavana, cultivation, we're not cultivating sights and sounds and thoughts. Cultivating detachment from those. Because there's such a strong bonding to sights and sounds and thoughts, we ride this counterbalance of the internal aspect of the body, the breathing aspect. And so this, as a citta, the heart normally will seek its orientation and its comfort and stability in what can be seen or considered or thought. And that's fragile and changeable. Providing another source, which is breathing in, breathing out. Which is the whole sense of the animate body, right? So this life force flowing in the body that we can all experience, warming, and how that does flow along in line with this rhythm of breathing. And the rhythmic nature is attractive and comforting, and the warmth, the energy of the warmth is something that citta will find pleasing and satisfying, because you don't have to go very far. And it's important to make it something that's pretty easy access. So you don't have to do a whole load of searching and, effort to make it. I think the Buddha's finding this because he's, just remembering when he was a little boy experiencing it. He wasn't striving at all to experience breathing in and breathing out. It's just quite natural because he was feeling comfortable and safe and no concerns. So that's our attitude. Comfortable, safe, no concerns for now anyway. And when we ask ourselves to know how we feel we have a body or in a body, like as if you're in it, not what's happening to it, but you're in it. You go into the internal aspect of the body, which is the body's life force energies. And most easily that's detectable as this swelling and subsiding that accompanies breathing in and breathing out, because in a nutshell, that is life. When that stops, it's over. And we can feel with that expanding of the inhalation, how vitality does stream. So we sit in a way where we're not compressed, constricted, chest is open, the arms are relaxed. The thinking mind is kind of steps back. We're being receptive. So yeah, and then receiving that steady, suffusive flow. It's like fire, but like a gentle fire. Warms you up. Bodies are warm. Breathing out, subsiding, as if things are going to rest. So the out breath is like the resting, returning to the earth. When we get to the end of the out breath ceases and there's some firmness there. So if you've landed. And don't be in a hurry to pull breath in. Don't concern yourself with getting it right. To keep all these mental agitations away. The end of the out breath, let it end completely. Let the willpower and the worry end, resting. And that state, it can take a few seconds sometimes before the in-breath comes in. But we're not, choking or struggling because the energy don't need anything. So, the breathing goes fast if we need a lot of energy, but now we're not doing anything or thinking anything, you don't need much. So that goes down, you experience a sense of deep rest. And then that unforced in-breath comes rolling in and lifts all that experience of body, the abdomen, the chest, up into the collar. And as you cultivate this, and you learn to use that life force itself as the support, because in many ways it is the support of our body, of our life. So we use skillful positioning of our back and shoulders to mean the muscles of the body are not being used. So inhalation completely lifts up through the body into the upper chest and under the collar and up into the throat and head. And it acts as a support. It holds you up. So then the sitting can be very minimal effort just to be with that. Most of your effort then is the mental effort to keep restraining the thinking mind and noting what's going on, just staying on track with it. And the effort of the heart is to enjoy and release its agitation. So in this wakeful but restful state is the optimal context for regeneration. Nervous energies, endocrine, psychological, we get a chance to rest it all and be refreshed. just certain aspects to bring to your to be conscious of. First of all, your attention is not cramping in on the breathing or on anything. Actually, it's quite open. It's not open in the sense of just being invaded by everything, but it's fairly spacious. It's not doing anything, but just holding a space. And you can experience the flow of the life force, the breathing. But you're also experiencing that in quite a cool, dispassionate way. You're not leaning into it, trying to get it right, or trying to develop something, or but it's there to help to release those psychologies, which of course are not just about breathing. We have those things going on about lots of things in our life. This is a chance to experience non-engagement. There's a certain spaciousness and a coolness, non-engagement. You're with it, but you're not in it. That space of non-engagement, viveka, is the term. You can hear these thoughts come trickling through, but memories, perceptions, jangly energies, and you just keep your attention from grabbing them or fighting with them or even trying to understand them. These are just energies moving through space. So I'll just wrap up that meditation memo. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with this theme, but it's good to return to it again and practice it again, since most of our life we're pretty much involved, deeply involved with what we're doing and thinking. So taking that time to release and refresh. And then if there's interest in the talk, someone requests the talk, I'll be happy to address a particular concern that's been presented to me.
Brahma Chaloka Dipati Sahampati Katanjali Anadivarama Yachata Santita Sata Parajakajatika Desetu Dhammam Anukampimam Pajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namsami. So I was asked about deathless consciousness, or consciousness of the deathless, or being conscious and being deathless. These terms kind of roll around in different combinations. What is deathlessness? Seems to be the main reason why the Buddha left home, was to realize the deathless. What is it anyway? And by and large, I'm not too keen on just doing verbal, this means that, this means that, this means that, but trying to get a final, who cares anyway? Why is it useful to even think about this? Because it is, in a way, it's the aim of the path, and that aim sets up a particular tonal quality, because it's about not being born, so whatever's born dies. It's about not grabbing hold of something and identifying with it. And one of the simplest definitions of the deathless is given in one of the sutras in the middle length saying called the imperturbable, or the way to the imperturbable, where the Buddha talks about all these very amazing meditative developments, including the realms of no thing and infinite consciousness and infinite space. So it's all quite mind-blowing. But he said, yeah, there's this, and this is as far as it goes in terms of clinging. In other words, if you want to grasp anything, grasp at the realm of infinite space or infinite consciousness, or neither perception or non-perception. So clearly the Buddha had a very complete comprehension of all the different levels of consciousness could get to. And he said, yeah, there's some pretty nice stuff out there, but this is deathlessness. That is the citta that's not grasping. And as one notices sometimes in the suttas, this is quite a lead up where the Buddha had to listen and listen and listen, and then he says, but this is the point. So we can be quite amazed at this presentation of these deep jhanas and so forth. And the Buddha says, yeah, that's there. And they are much more better than hanging on to this thing. But deathlessness is just non-grasping at anything. So that non-grasping, and what is it that grasps? Do we know what that is? What is grasping, clinging? It's not I don't grasp, but there's a reaction on something that I find that the citta, the heart, finds agreeable. It tends to hold it, not want it to pass, obviously. It holds on to something, doesn't want it to pass, or it tries to resist something happening. So again, you can feel it tighten up and firm up. Or there's that grasping onto some status or identity. I'm the leader of this, or I'm this, or some identity thing, whereby there's this grasping, or the heart grasps, and then there's a sense of being solid. This is where I am. I've got it. I have this. I'm here. That's who I am. I know what I'm doing. I am what I am. That thing. That's called becoming. It becomes a certain shaping. The citta takes a shape. It forms an identity, and then there's all the narrative and the color of me, with all its dramas and interesting details. And so you see some magazines are full of these, Hollywood or latest music, rock singer, what her tastes in dress are, or what she likes to eat, all this stuff going on about her. She's become somebody famous. Therefore, all these things are really important and colourful. And so this is the whole movement towards becoming and birth. And you fast forward, of course, you recognize that that state of being is going to crack up or fade out in a few years' time. And there's death, aging and death. Yeah. So that's what grasping is about, and the futility of it, because actually nothing can be grasped. Nothing does stay, no matter how hard the heart holds on to it. It doesn't stay, and the harder you hold it, the more painful it is when it passes. So there's that whole sense of really learning how to be non-grasping, or to get the heart to not grasp, and yet still feel stable in itself. Why grasping? Because when we're grasping something gets us to feel, here I am, I'm solid, I got this is my name, identity, even if it's a bad identity, at least I know what it is, that's me. So that sense of the need for solidity and orientation. Okay, so now the Buddha, again, where we talked about these very refined states, but let's be clear, the Buddha said, I've gone to this, I am trodden this ancient path, trodden by the enlightened ones of old, as if to this city, this path that got lost. And along this path I've walked, and I've come to know the arising and passing of birth, the arising and passing of aging, the arising and passing of death. This is the Eightfold Path, is this way to the ending of death and deathlessness. Now, clearly, the Buddha's own body broke up. So, if it, so it wasn't, the body wasn't deathless. The eyes weren't deathless. Speech faculty fell away. That wasn't deathless. Thinking couldn't do that. Ended. So, but then the citta that was not engaged with that is then liberated from this mortal condition. And then, of course, people say, really, where did it go? And the Buddha said, you can't. How could you say, how could you locate it? Because whatever you locate is a topic of grasping. Yeah. So if it was on the planet Earth, it would be grasping planet Earth. If it was in a Devaloka, it would be stuck on the Devaloka, some heavenly realm. So the citta that has not grasping is also some translated as no foundation for grasping, nothing to. In other words, it rests in itself rather than on some object or state or another. And so for this, there's both the sense of disengagement, and that becomes possible, and perhaps only possible, through the cultivation and strengthening and acknowledgement and cleaning of the citta, so it can rest in itself rather than have something to prop it up. It's like if you're sick, broken, depleted, you need a stick and crutches to hold you up. But if you're healthy, you don't. You can walk by yourself. So similarly, the citta, if it's not sick, confused, broken, it will stand on its own. And say, where's that? It's in citta. At that point, the language starts to fall away, and the Buddha didn't really go any further with that. He just said, you know it when it's there. And some examples. So, is this consciousness or what? Well, again, it depends what you mean by this English word consciousness, because it's certainly not unconscious. So conscious in the sense it's aware, but the Pali word vijnana doesn't mean quite the same thing. It means consciousness of something. So when we look at the Pali word vijnana, it means consciousness of a sight, or of a sound, or of a thought. So it's always based upon some sense object, even including the object, sense object of the thinking mind, or even these very lofty states of, nothingness or infinite space. It's still, consciousness of that object. Yeah. So this is the word, use the word vijnana, means that. So it's something we can also recognize. And some of the texts point this out. I think I've got brought up a few here to talk about or to refer to. Consciousness, while standing, might stand involved with form. With a sprinkling of delight, it might come to growth, increase, and expansion. Or consciousness might stand involved with feeling. So or activations, mental movements. It might stand involved with a sight or a sound. It rests upon something. But if one has abandoned raga, raga is translated as passion. That's a very strong word, but this sense of coloring for form, for sight, for sound, and so on. Now, what does this refer to, raga? Now, when consciousness lands on something, contact arises. As I was saying to the group here today, we had some of the cushions on the floor, blue cushions. So I'm sitting here talking to people, I know there's cushions there, but I don't really, I'm not engaging with it. And then I might decide to look at one. So then when the visual consciousness really looks at that blue cushion, suddenly the rest of the room kind of fades out, and that blue cushion becomes quite dominant and strong, and the color enters. You get a strong feeling from the color, which wasn't there when one didn't engage with it. So the consciousness acts as an amplifier. What consciousness lands upon, it causes that which it lands upon to swell and grow, not in terms of space, but in terms of intensity. So it swells and grows in intensity in the chitta. And another example, which is perhaps even clearer, when one what one intends, what one arranges, what one obsesses about. So these are mental consciousness, okay? So what one intends, what one aims for, what one arranges, what one obsesses about, this is a support for the stationing of consciousness. Right? So thoughts could be drifting through, and suddenly you catch one, oh my, and it really sticks, and you get onto it and you start obsessing with that thought. So then this means that that becomes a basis for consciousness to get established on that thought. Yeah. There being a support, there is a landing. When it lands and grows, there is production of renewed becoming. So when I land upon the thought, then the thought doesn't just sit there, it starts to swell and grow and says, and this, and what about that? It reminds me of this, it reminds me of that, and you could do this, and you could do that, and this means you're like this or like that. So it starts to proliferate, because when consciousness gets established on it, then there's this quality called becoming. It proliferates and manifests and develops because consciousness lands on it. Yeah. If one doesn't intend and doesn't arrange and still obsesses, this is a support, the station of consciousness. If one doesn't intend to arrange or obsess about anything, there is no support for the stationing of consciousness. Okay, there being no support, there's no landing of consciousness. When that consciousness doesn't land and grow, there's no production of renewed becoming. No production of renewed becoming, there is no future birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, or despair. Such is the cessation of this entire mass of suffering. So the stationing means that we are conscious in the sense we're not unconscious, but what is that consciousness engaging with? And why does it engage? Because there's some degree of that thoughts seem, when we think about something, it's got some flavor to it. Maybe just literally planning dinner. Oh yeah, or you're planning a vacation. Oh yeah, or you're worrying about your job. So this is not necessarily the flavor is always pleasant, but it's got some richness to it, and one gets stirred. The chitta is stirred, agitated, hungry, it's swelling. It's flavored. It's colored, right? And that coloring of the chitta means that there's engagement, and the chitta starts, that process of propelling consciousness into future possibilities. So chitta acts as the heart of consciousness. It's the driver. Where consciousness goes, it goes because the chitta drives it there. And chitta is the motivator. Chitta is the engine, and its fuel is passion. So when it gets passion, it throws consciousness onto something, a sight, a sound, mostly a thought or an imagination. Yeah. To the point in which that flavoring of the thought and the imagination will be so strong, it actually dominates reality. So we see things, we think we see things as fantastic, they're actually quite ordinary, but because our chitta is impassioned, it makes them fantastic. Yeah. No, and certainly, as I often comment, the world of consumerism, the whole addiction of consumerism is based upon this. So you produce some car or something, make it nice and sleek shapes, glossy colors. I mean, the shape and the color of a car does not guarantee you're going to travel anywhere. The aim of a car is to get from point A to point B. What it looks like is of no significance in terms of getting from point A to point B, is it? It doesn't affect at all. And yet nobody really buys a car just from point A to point B, because it's the color, the shape, the cuteness, that's all part of it. That's why there are 25 different kinds of car, because they're all trying to give something attractive. So that gets the passion going, and the chitta will then engage with that, so that the passion for the object supersedes the reality of the object. Yeah. And people like to go on shopping sprees, not because they need anything, because there's that excitement about getting glossy, tasty, colorful, cute things. So the emotional impression dominates the material reality of it. This is when this raga colors everything. Yeah. And of course, we predominantly the human body, which is an adequate, thing for life. And then, basically there's not that much difference in them. Heads, feet, legs, elbows, so forth, organs. Most of it's not particularly anything really. It's just like a tree. It's quite okay. But then the passion flavors it as something kind of dazzling, attractive, and you do things to it to make it that way. So then the passion actually drives one's consciousness into greed, delusion, and consumerism, where we become fascinated by sights. So the chitta is the passion in the chitta that drives that. Now, when we're intending, planning, arranging, obsessing, those words mean, well, I could get this. I really got to get that. If I got this and that, work that out. It's a kind of excitement of arriving at a particular goal, isn't there? You do this and I'll get to there. So there's a kind of excitement of doing that. And that excitement to arrive somewhere, to get something done, to arrive at a conclusion, where you've traveled somewhere in your mind and got somewhere. So then we engage with the thoughts to get that feeling of developing and becoming something, to the point when you can do things like play Sudoku, which I've never actually played Sudoku. I've just got a vague idea what it's about, something about letters and words. But, if you get good at it, you can play with that and get to some result or another, which is of utterly no consequence whatsoever. I think somebody showed something called Pokemons, which again is another completely useless, futile fantasy. But you can get entertained, either chasing them or finding them or something. So, what did that for? Yeah. So I think we had some of these were stuck. I don't quite understand it, but some of them were stuck in our monastery. We had these Pokemon things, and people were turning up the monastery trying to find our whatever it was, somewhere up a bell tower. I said, could you please get your Pokemon out of our bell tower? So people ignored the monastery and the bell tower and the place where they could actually learn something useful. They completely ignored that for chasing this fantasy object because that was more attractive than wisdom teachings. The excitement of arriving something, solving a problem, getting things fixed. That's called becoming. And of course, with these things like games and sports and so forth, or particularly board games, like playing board games, actually there's absolutely no achievement other than just that kind of mental sense of you've succeeded. But what? Playing this game. Yeah. Yeah. So that's passion. There's colouring around, moving numbers around or moving words around, and then people get absorbed into it. So I'm sure there are all kinds of groups of people, perhaps even online, computer games, which again, I've never even done a computer game, or don't really know what they are, but I know there's lots of people doing them, and you're getting completely absorbed in it. And it's all fantasy. It's all fantasy. And we can put our life energy into fantasy, knowing it's fantasy. Everybody knows it's fantasy. And still you put life energy into it. Your time on this planet is put into that. Because what? Because of raga. And because the citta loves the movement of energy, loves that, is attracted to that, like a magpie is attracted to glittery objects. Citta is attracted to energy because the citta feeds on energy. Raga. Therefore it drives consciousness into this and that and this and that. And sometimes this isn't fun at all. It's miserable, obsessive worry, obsessive guilt, obsessive regret, where it's still got intense feeling in it, an identity with it. So we go into the identity thing again, because somehow or another, some unconscious, not clear way, the citta has kind of gone down that route so many times, it's now familiar. It's gone down that route, that track of regret or concern so many times that it just rolls down there like a ball rolling down a hill. And when you see that and you recognize it's happening and you know it's crazy, you don't even like it, you don't want to do it, you wish you wouldn't do it, but you keep doing it. You're thinking, hey, this stuff takes a bit of work to shift. And what are we doing then? It's not so easy just to let go, is it? To disengage. It's not so easy. Disengagement, path to the deathless, sounds great. Don't get your consciousness driven into things, sounds great. Why don't we do it? This thing, because it's not in control, there is no self in control of it. There's no self in control of it. Yeah. We're dealing with almost like chemistry. So, the Buddha's saying, well, then we can provide a counterbalance where the energies, the citta, okay, give it some life energy, give it some breath energy, and give it some sense of knowing where it is, not by sight, sounds, and so forth, but by ethical concern. I know where I am in my place of truthfulness. In a place of truthfulness, then the quality of the sight or the sound or the object is not my concern. My concern is truthfulness or harmlessness, non-violence. So you're providing an alternative orientation. And this is the ethical aspect of the Eightfold Path, as an unavoidable and necessary training for the realization of the deathless, because it disengages passion, it disengages the citta. So then we can still see and think and taste and touch, but the driving into those is done not through passion, but through conscience and concern, or through kindness, or through, in other words, from somewhere that's not about passion. And that is essential, because then the citta begins to feel its own truth and richness through giving itself into wholesome channels. And that means that the unwholesome ones begin to dry up, because your citta doesn't travel down them. And that's the nature of it. If you don't travel down those paths time and time again, eventually they wear out. So the Buddha says this is like a realized being, like someone who just doesn't have those paths anymore. They've eradicated the path to violence. It's just there is no pathway. Citta doesn't go there. Yeah. So this is, and we're beginning to recognize we're still seeing and thinking and touching and so forth, but now that when it doesn't obsess or plan, one is mindful, reflective, considers carefully. So then you're beginning to train the way that citta operates consciousness, and then restraint. I don't need to see that. I see that my consciousness lands upon that and starts getting heated up, or starts getting tangled and frazzled. And there's a sense of just humility, of realizing one is not in control of this. It's like if you put a match into gasoline, it's going to explode. Whatever your wishes or your personality is. So you know this one. Yeah. And of course but the beauty of it is once you've begun to cultivate that, then the passion, if it's not being encouraged, fades out. And you've got something more stable and steady instead. Instead of passion, you've got dispassion. And dispassion means you can sense things without being rocked by them. You're open, you can sense things, you can see things clearly. You know, you don't color objects. Objects can be exactly what they are. They're not colored by something. And so this dispassion allows one, it's called, to see things actually as they are, without the colorings and the flavorings. When one sees things as they are, we just recognize it's just that. It's nothing about, there's nothing to get in that. It's what it is. There's no, it's just a thing. It's just a sight. You don't get it. So then this is when the citta begins to not be propelling consciousness into these sights and sounds and touches, although we can still see. Because this is the release from grasping. Begins with that understanding of a path, and the understanding of the requirement and the addictive qualities, and the need to find an alternative base for the citta to be strengthened by. So this is ongoing, isn't it? Now, as we just cultivate in meditation, you can find this very directly. You can find that situation where there's a body, but you're not in your shoulders or your skin or your hair or your eyes or your shape or your age or your color of skin, or you're not in it. That's an object. It's not a subject. That's not you. That's an object. It's not the subject. Is where the subject is the knowing, animate, alive qualities that are, and everything about that is constantly shifting and changing. So we actually don't have a body. We never did. in reality. So when this passes away, when this body passes away, it's like, well, it never was mine. Yeah. The life force has moved, opened. Where does it go? Where does it go? Well, you can find that out. Pretty much get a good idea of that when you breathe in. You breathe in, and you breathe in. And what happens to the vitality of your breathing in? It swells and it subsides. Where does it go? It just goes into space, doesn't it? It just goes. Where did the energy go? The energy, where does energy go when it goes? It goes to what can't be determined. Where does the chitta go when it goes out? It goes to what can't be determined. Because determining is an action of consciousness, to say this is this, that's that, that's it. When one doesn't do that, No, I mean, these may seem things you can ponder or consider, but the main theme of our practice is to get a distinction between vijnana and citta, consciousness or sights and sounds, and the effect of when one's consciousness is called an element. So when it lands on something, it actually imparts qualities to what it lands upon. And if it's impassioned, it imparts passionate qualities. If it's irritable, it imparts irritableness on it to it. It flavors things in accordance with its dominant tendency. Yeah. And then the citta gets affected by all that. So the removal of these taints means that we see things, but we're not impacted. We hear, we see, we touch, we're not swayed. And then this is deathlessness in this very life, when the citta is unswayed by desire, fear, or aversion. Okay, so offer this for your consideration this evening. And I wonder if there's would the people in the room like to wave or say hello?
Turn the
camera around, let's get to meet each other. Yeah. There we go. Where are they? Wherever you are. Kalyanamitta. Okay, so I'll let you go. I'm going to take a couple of months break, partly because I'm going on retreat, and I'm not too certain of the Wi-Fi connections anyway. But the next one of these will be in March sometime. I've forgotten exactly when. March when? Do you know? March. Somewhere about, it's after the middle of March. It'll probably be, well, we'll post it somewhere. So be well and stay in the stream. And let's just chant the closing homage together and bid each other good wishes for now. Blessed One. I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha.
So, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, and those on Zoom, let us all now pay respects to Lord Paul by offering him 3 bows. First bow. Second bow.